Hey, how you doing? Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome to another time here. Welcome to another time at the book club. We got to do this every Sunday afternoon, West African time at 2 p.m. West African time. We got to read a book, do life through the book, learn through the book, share life with it, and hopefully help one another in the journey of life. It's been a blessing for me. I'm getting to learn a lot of things I will either to not have learned if without this book club. So it's a selfish endeavor to say just to help Akin Bodije learn a lot of things he would not have learned otherwise. Kind of gives me the impetus to read books and read books on topics that I need, topics that make a difference for me, topics that move me forward, topics that, gives me the opportunity to fully exploit life. So I'm just hoping that someone else will come along and get blessed, even as I am getting blessed. So that's why I do it. That's why I do it. I have a lot of books. Funny enough, as I do this book club, I'm not even using any of the books I already have. I'm having to get new books, for the book club because it's not about just reading the books I have. It's about learning the important facets of life, things that make a difference to our life, things that can help us live better, fully honest life, live the fullness of life, live that extraordinary life, become released, become free, being able to have a life that is well lived, a life that is well lived, a life that is not incapacitated, that is not limited, a life whereby you can count yourself to have a good success, to be successful, have a good success, be successful, be not be successful, be fulfilled at the thing that you are doing in life. You're not doing things because you have to do them, but because you choose to do them, that you are fulfilling your calling in life. You are fulfilling you are living, not just existing. So those are topics we're sharing just to help one another, get the full benefit of the pilgrimage of this life. That you're not just don't just come to this life and just be, just be without being, but that you be as you are being. People will notice that you are alive. You will make an impact. You will leave a dent you will leave a dent in this life that you will be forever rememberable. People will remember you because you made a difference in their life. Your living made a difference in their life, in their vicinity, in their environment, in their association. That's what I gotta do. There's no WhatsApp group that that I'm passive. I'm not. I'm not a passive person. People know when I'm around. People know when I'm not around. For good. And to be able to be that good, I have to learn. I have to grow. I have to grow. I must not be a stagnant water. I have to grow, and that's why I study. That's why I learn. Also have my own life increase, get better, get better, get better. If I'm going to be fresh water, fresh smell of freshness to others, then I have to make sure that my reservoir is continually flowing. It's continually flowing. I'm not just staying stagnant. It's not just the old water. As I'm pouring out the old water, I'm getting new water. I'm getting new water. I'm getting freshness myself. I cannot teach that which I am not already experiencing myself. So if I'm going to teach success, I have to be a success. If I'm going to teach success, I have to be a success. If I'm going to teach fulfillment, then I have to be fulfilled myself. Right? I'm not here to teach theory. I'm not here to teach you what someone said. I'm here sharing with you what I have seen, I have touched, I have experienced, I am living, and I'm getting the benefit of doing it. So I'm here just to invite you to that same place, right? And it's not just where I've been to, it's where I am being to, because the continual process. We're not here sharing books I've already read. Like I said, I'm not even sharing books on my bookshelf. I have a lot of books on my bookshelf. But as we go through the series, I keep on buying new books I didn't even know about before. Just because what we're doing leads us into new areas, right? areas I've never thought I never knew about. Right. So I'm getting the benefit, and I'm hoping that you also are getting that benefit, of learning things or growing. I keep on referring to Michelangelo. Michelangelo said on his dying bed, I'm still learning. That's what I want to say myself on my dying bed when I'm 120 years old. I'm still learning. 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 I'm 59 this year. I'm still learning. I'll be 60 next year. I'm still learning. I want to still be learning. I don't want to ever get still. I don't want to be a dinosaur that is not relevant to its present. I want to ever stay relevant to my present. Relevant to my present. And that's the journey. I invite you to come along also as we do this book club. Thanks for being here. We're in a night book in the series. We've done 9 books. This is our 5th year in this. We started 2021, and we've done 9 books. This is our ninth book since we've been here. And it's been a journey on it. We're presently in chapter 4, and we've been there. This is our night meeting on chapter 4, right? Night we canceled 2 meetings that we had, but I wasn't really in the mood, so I didn't like the recording, so I took it away. So really, we've done 11 meetings, but really, was it 2 or even 3 meetings I had to cancel? But officially, this is the ninth one in chapter 4 of the book, talking about the rope, how to how to fully how to get someone to the point of making a decision. How to get someone to the point of making a decision. First of all, we talk about negotiating with someone to get a person to a place of decision. Then we talked about persuasion, how to persuade someone to the process of making a decision. That's what we're on right now. We talked about 7. So we had 7 psychological principles for persuading people, for getting people to that place of making a decision. 7 psychological principles put together by Robert B. Cialdini. Right, we've looked at all 7 of them, and this is his book. We've used in talking about persuasion. There's 7 of them. We've talked about them. The first one we've looked at. All right, we didn't go in the order of his book, that we're looking at his book. We looked at the principle of reciprocity. We looked at the principle of social proofs, principle of authority. We looked at the principle of commitment and consistency. And today we're going to be looking at the principle of liking, the principle of scarcity, and the principle of unity. Powerful, powerful. I was just writing as I finished reading the book today, finished reading the book today, and we're gonna closing out the book also today. You know, uh, I, this has helped me learn a lot of things that I didn't know. Why I do the things that I do, why I make decisions the way I make decisions, why I seem to be moved in particular ways. Robert didn't create the psychological principles. He found them out by research. It's part of the human nature, part of the human tendency, right? All he has done is find them out, just like we talk about natural laws. People don't find them. They are already set in motion. Set in motion. It's just about observing. When you observe, you find them. Social science, you find them out. Right. So this has been interesting. 7 psychological principles. It's helped me to understand why I do some things that I do. Just like when we talk about the personalities. When I did the personality study, it was revolutionary for me because I used to think that, oh, I must be a strange person because I kind of don't do the things everybody does. I kind of don't make decisions the way everybody does. And I used to think that I must be a strange person. Well, I found that yes, I'm a strange person. My personality type is not it's not common. It's not like every other person. When you talk about the I'm a Sigma personality. If you're looking at it from alpha, beta, personality distinguishing. I'm a Sigma personality, which is like the introvert of the alpha, right? That's where there are not too many of them. There are not too many of them, right? So I am a strange person. The only thing is that I have been researched, right? There are a few people like me, so I am not, I'm not just one person. I have people like me, but just rare. That's all, and special also, so I can then hone my personality, rather than trying to be like someone else. I can hone my personality. I can hone my strengths. I can hone my weaknesses, then know how to use and exploit my personality. Those are things you gain by learning. You know, every personality type has been studied. The more I read into psychology, the more I just wonder. Every personality type has been studied, and you can exploit them. Right. The more you read into psychology, you see how it's easy to exploit human beings. It's easy to control the minds of human beings, because we're predictable, you know, and it helps you know that for yourself so that you can then exploit your own self. The intent of this studies is not to usurp other people, but to manage your own life in such a way that you can come out, you can make the best of what you have. It's not about seeking for what other people have, but that you can make the best of what you have because you already have enough. Even you know how to use it. You have all that you need to succeed in this life. Your problem is that you don't know how to use it. And that's what we learn. All of this study is one of those things, is to help us know what we already have and exploit it and use it in a way that we can become a success in this life, right? So, all right, enough of my intro. I'm gonna bring up my slide here, and we're gonna do a more structured time to, the last part of our book here, talking about persuasion. Then after we're done with this part on persuasion, the last part on chapter 4 is talking about decision architecture. We've talked about in the rope, getting us to a place of making decision by negotiating, by persuasion, but the last part in helping us make decision, and the things that affect the decisions we'll make is the way the choice and the presentation is structured, and that's what we're talking about under the title Decision or Choice Architecture, or how to nudge people in a particular direction, right? We're going to be talking about that. The main book here, somehow I missed out the main book to talk about that. The main book is by Tyler and so another someone else, but I thought I had ordered it when I ordered this other book here, Decision Architecture by another author. I thought that was the one proposed in our book. I thought it was the one proposed that I was ordering, but I apparently ordered another one. So we're gonna use this in the meantime. But I've ordered the right one. The right one is by Tyler and someone else, right? I've ordered the book. Hopefully, I get it this week or next. But in the meantime, we use this other one. We're talking about the same thing, decision architecture. We'll use it to fill the gap until we get the actual one, But that'll be the last part of chapter 4. We're looking at how to structure things to help people make the right decision. How the 419 people, the compliance people structure it either in a way, both in the ethical way and in the unethical way. What to look out for when someone is trying to exploit you, in the way the person is structuring the options, or the way the person is nudging you, how to know if the person is trying to exploit you or the person is helping you make the right decision. Those are things we're going to get out as we talk about decision architecture. But in the meantime, let's finish our book here on influence, talking about persuasion. Alrighty. So we're here still talking about our book here, The Confidence Game. That's what we've done. We're in the chapter 4 of it. And here, and chapter 4 just says ultimately anyone can be conned. And we've seen that. Anyone can be conned because, either by negotiating with the person or by persuading the person. And we're looking at 7 psychological principles for persuading. All I have to do is understand, I use any one of this, depending on the person I'm talking to, and I can get the person. All I have to do is arrange the thing I'm trying to make the person do in a way that will to help the person make the right decision, or in an ethical way I can nudge the person towards what the decision I want the person to make, irrespective of whether it's good or not for the person. That anyone can be conned, just as much as anyone can be helped in making decisions easily, right? It's a well studied part. We talked about the 3 books we've been using to help us in our main book. The Heart of a Con, the Big Con, and the Marking Side, right? The Marking Side. 3 books we've been using along with our main book as we go along. Uh, and here, as we finish talking about influence today, persuasion, influence, we've also used the Art of the Persuasion by Bob Buck. We didn't go in depth into it, but we used the principles there also, along with our book here, The Influence, by Robert Cialdini. And lastly, from next week, we're going to talk about the decision architecture. That's going to be the finishing part of chapter 4, talking about how to arrange our presentation to help our listeners, our audience, to make the right decision. How people also use it in a way to push us to make the decision they want us to make, which might not necessarily be good for us. How to be able to pinpoint when someone is trying to manipulate us to make a decision that they want that might not necessarily be the right one for us, right? So we're going to learn that as we talk about decision architecture. All right. But today we're trying to finish talking about persuasion. And this has been building, talking about the con game. The con game, we say to do the con game, you have first of all know your audience, right? Know your audience, know how to start getting them into the game that you're trying to set up. That's introduce them to the game. And also then convincing them is what we have been talking about here in chapter 4. And in chapter 5, we'll talk about the tail, which will be the final, getting them to take the bait, getting them to to buy into whatever it is that you've been trying to get them to make a decision. And we'll talk about that in chapter 5. But let's just stay here with chapter 4. So we've talked about that. If you need, there are 4 things involved when you're trying to persuade a person, right? First of all, is the person that is communicating, or the person that is making the persuasion, the message you're trying to pass across. How you communicate the message is important, right? How you communicate the message is important, and also then your audience, right? So 4 parts to getting a successful negotiation or persuasion. Here we talked about the 7, we're talking about our 7 psychological principles we've been looking at, and we've talked about the first one. We talked about the principle of reciprocity. Just simply engaging, our natural tendency to wanting to give back to someone that has given to us. So sometimes you want to get people to do something, you give them a piece of that thing, and then what you give to them gives them a sense of wanting to give to you back. And we do that in different ways, right? Go to supermarkets and make you taste. Free tasting, and sometimes you feel committed because they're giving you that small one to taste. You feel committed to buy. They preview. Someone wants to do a big conference or symposium or teaching, they give you the intro version, give you a small piece of it. And because of that small piece, you might feel, you feel a sense of wanting to give back. But it's just that thing that tunes into our natural tendency of wanting to pay back, wanting to be kind to those that are kind to us, to love those that love us, right? And number two, we talked about the principle of commitment and consistency. Is that principle, that if you can get someone to commit to a small thing, it becomes easier for them to commit to a bigger version of it. If they can take one step, then they can take a bigger step, right? So that's a commitment, which is we can also part of it is what we call a foot in the door, right? If you can get someone just to taste of something, it becomes easier, to make a bigger commitment to it. And part of that is that natural inclination or tendency that for us to want to be consistent. It's a natural tendency for us to be consistent, because that's what makes us rational beings. If I make a decision now, my rational nature wants to convince myself that I know what I am doing, right? I want to be consistent with who I was. It's a natural tendency, and we can use that to persuade, get someone to do something. Number three, we talked about social proof. It's sometimes we make decision because other people are doing it. If it's convenient and it's okay for others, we feel it's also okay for us. We don't have that sense of being the odd man out, or we don't want to be the odd man out. So sometimes it's something we use to be persuaded or to persuade others that other people are doing it. Therefore we're not the odd man out. There's also the place of authority. When you talk about authority, you're in things that you don't know too much about. If the authorities, like a doctor says this is okay for your health, you tend to believe the doctor. An authority in that field, could be also authority figure, your parents, someone that's older than you, someone that's been doing something longer than you, and you tend to want to believe them because they're older than you, they have more experience than you in that area. Like I say, also it could also be for professional reasons. It could be a doctor. You take your car to the mechanic. Say something about the car. Because that's their expertise. You tend to want to listen to them. And today we're going to be talking about the last three of them, which is liking, scarcity, and unity. Right. Uh, so when we talk about lighting, it's just that we would tend to want to do things for people that we like. If I like someone, then it's easier for me to say yes to that person, right? So people say yes to people they like. Is the friendly thief. It's like we'll say, people don't buy things, because of that thing. They buy things because of the person selling it. You're falling in love with a company, with a person, and you buy it because of that person more than for the good itself. It's like I'm what you would call a cult follower of Apple. You know, I'm buying the Apple laptop not just because of a laptop, but because I believe in the Apple that makes it. I believe in their mission, their vision, their modus operandi. I trust the way they handle equipment, so I'm sold out. Even though it's expensive, I'm buying it because of the liking I have for the company, right? So and people make decisions based on that. If you're making you're buying something from someone because you like the person, right? And that makes you like the product or assume the product is good for you, and and salespeople use that, right? They when a salesperson comes to you, and one of the teaching you will give a salesperson, easy way to get to sell someone is to, like the thing the person likes, such that the person sees you, kind of like you. When the person likes you, it's easier for the person to say yes to the thing you're trying to get across to the person. Joe Girard says there's nothing more effective in selling anything than getting customers to really believe you like them, right? If the customer believes you like them, and therefore they'll like you, they'll tend to want to buy your product, right? The principle of liking states that people are more likely to say yes to individuals they know, like, or feel a connection with, right? If they know you, they tend to want to buy from you, whether just to make you happy, to make you know them more, and or whether they like you or they feel a connection with you, right? uh, People are more likely to buy from, work with, or support people they like, right? It's just a general natural tendency. And we can use that, in being able to pass our message across in an ethical way. The con people use it in the unethical way, right? They don't necessarily, they make you like them, or they show they like you because they want to defraud you. But it can also be used in the ethical way, right? To sell a product that is good for the person, right? The person, whether it's good or bad, the person still is going to make that decision because he feels that you like him or her. Therefore they like you and they're going to make that decision. So but what is being exchanged now is a function of the genuity of a person trying to persuade, right? So it's up to me that is being used or not to be able to, beware, because my natural tendency is to buy from this person because I think he likes me, right? But what we're exchanging, I should also check what we're exchanging, that is of value, right? That is of value, right? Lest I be a victim of a 419, a swindler, right? So it relies on establishing rapport, similarity, and genuine compliments to influence behavior and build trust. So someone, that wants to sell to you based on liking will establish a rapport with you. You will establish the fact that, there's a bit of similarity. You like the same thing, or you have the same interest, and, give you some genuine compliments, and since you people, if you strike, if you strike if you strike a commonality, at that point in time, there's a tendency for the person to accept your proposal, right? Rather than, if the person doesn't feel like you like him or her. So we are persuaded by people we like. If we like someone, it's easier to listen and be swayed by that person. So building a connection with others increases the likelihood of them being persuaded by us, right? If you want someone to be persuaded by you, first thing is to build a connection with them. Years ago when I used to plan wells, do some planning, designing, I had some mentors, some mentees, that observed the way I get to call people, that I work with, and they made mention of that, and I know one of them still does that today, and probably a couple of them still do it. They know that when I pick up the phone and to talk to somebody, I'm not just going to go straight to ask the thing I want to ask on that person. I'm going to first of all joke with the person, make the person happy, just say something, to excite the person away from what I'm really trying to ask. And when we're done with that, I make the request. And the request is easily, given to me, it hits the sweet spot. One of them mentioned that, but that's just That's something I practice. I used to practice that, and I still practice it. All the people I work here with, I don't go straight to the point. I first of all find out how they're doing, how's their family doing. We'll probably gist about something that's current, then we'll go to the point. And it's something that's worked. I get what I'm looking for. And it's just like eating on that prince on that human nature that would tend to listen to and want to help someone that will think likes us. Because they like us, then we tend to like them. And because we like them, we want to help them. Right? It's just a human nature. So similarities, complements, familiarity, they lower the threshold for saying yes. If I can get someone to make someone to think we're similar, give compliments, show familiarity, it's probably easier for the person to help me. You know, so liking is not a superficial mechanism. It is a signal that someone is trustworthy and understands your interest. Right? If I think someone likes me, then I think the person is trustworthy, and understands my interest. Therefore, I think the person is on my side. That makes it easier for me to say yes. The liking principle involves creating a favorable impression by finding common ground, showing genuine interest, and demonstrating similarity, right? So, uh, so there's we talked about some things why we like people, right? Why we like people include we like people that look attractive, and that is a weakness for me. I kind of like things that look good. I can't even eat with a cheap fork or cheap cutlery in my house, right? My wife has some set of relatively cheap cutlery, and I can't eat with them. Not intentional. I just can't eat of them because I'm used to the expensive one, the thicker one, more structured one. Somehow they've disappeared in the house, reduction, whatever has happened to them, and we have this other cheaper one, and I can't use them. I'm gonna have to buy more of the more expensive one because I'm just used to using that. Because they're thicker, they I'm used to it. I'm used to the good one. I can't use the cheap one, you know. So we gotta like people just because the physical nature is attractive. Something about them pulls us to them. Maybe there are people that are not attracted to beauty, but I am. Yeah, we say beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Yeah, whatever that is beauty for you, there's a tendency to pull towards beauty. We tend to like the things that we consider they are beautiful, right? So that's one of the ways in which we like people. So if you want people to be liked, be attractive. I'm not saying go and bleach or go and do what they call it, face therapy, or I mean whatever, plastic surgery. I'm not saying that. Make the best of what you have. Accept the parts that you cannot change, but groom what you have. You don't have to be the most beautiful, but what you have, make the best of it. I used to have hair. I don't have hair anymore. So I have to groom to fit what I have. I'm a man. If I was a woman, maybe I'll go get wig. I'm a man. I can't get wig. At least that's not the reigning culture or custom today. In the old days, yes, a man could wear wig. It's not acceptable, generally acceptable today. So I have to then groom what the no hair that I have. I have a lot more white today, not black, right? I'm not given to dying. If I'd wanted to die at some point in time, then I'd die well. I'll put some coloration to it and make it look nice. So it's not about what I don't have. It's about making the best of what I have and make it look attractive. If I make the best of what I have, people will like me for what I have, not what I don't have. I'm not going to change the size of my nose. This is my nose, but I can groom my face well enough that my nose will fit it. And wear glasses, yes, but I don't have to wear glasses that make me look ugly. I can wear glasses that fit my face shape and make me attractive. Make someone want to spend time to talk to me, not be irritated by the way I'm groomed. If you want people to say yes to your proposal, make the best of what you have. Groom yourself well. Because people are attracted to things that look nice. So it's physical attraction. The next one is similarity. We like people who like us. We like people who are like us, sorry. Right? So you'll have to find something that you have to find a commonality with the people you're trying to get yes from. You don't have to be one-to-one fully overlapped, similar, but there's an overlap somewhere. If nothing else, you're both human beings. You are not trying to get a yes from a dog. You're trying to get yes from a human being, irrespective of your coloration. You have red blood flowing in both of you. You are humans. You have feelings. Work on the things. Work on the overlap. You cannot do anything on the ones where there's no overlap. Work on the overlap. Show that you are both human beings. You feel the same thing. Because people like to say yes to people that are similar to them. Find that place of similarity and use it. Exploit it. Right? So we like people who dress like us, have similar interests with us. So find it. Also, compliment. When you compliment someone, say something, make someone feel nice, look good. It's not about lying. Find something good on that person. Find something that is true that you can comment on that person and comment. I like your shoe. I like your smile. I like the fact that you are here early. Say something nice. Make the person feel happy. It's easier to get your yes when you do that. Also familiarity, right? So bring to a place of familiarity. We often find comfort in people who remind us of familiar faces, past positive relations, and enhancing feeling of safety. Enhancing feelings of safety. So find some things that can bring you, which is same to similarity, but also familiarity. Talk about something that both of you have experienced before, or something that is close to what's going to make the person feel familiar. Make the person come to a place of rest. In talking to you, this person has been where I've been. Likes what I like. Just something that makes them feel at home. Right. So familiarity is important. Also, uh, conditioning and association, right? The nature of bad news infects. So we like people that have associations to things that we like, right? There's a natural human tendency to dislike a person who brings us unpleasant information, right? Even when that person did not cause the bad news. The reverse is also equally true. There's a natural tendency to like a person who brings us pleasant information, right? So we can like people by what they're associated with. Someone comes, everything is okay, but just because that person is associated with someone we don't like, something that reminds us of a bad, sad memory, we tend not to like the person for that. If someone comes, oh, we went to the same secondary school, or your children go to the same school or something that you are both associates you to something that makes you, that brings joy, pleasure to you, that can make you like a person. There's a natural human tendency to like a person who brings us pleasant information, even when that person the did not cause the news, right? So if someone brings us whatever news the person brings us, we like someone that brings us something that is pleasant, right? People become more receptive to ideas, arguments, or proposals while eating pleasant food, right? That's conditioning. If you're talking to someone trying to get a result while the person is eating, the person is more likely to say yes. or while the person is listening to music, or something that's cooling, someone is bringing that person into a pleasurable mood. It's easier to say yes when you're in a pleasurable mood than when you're not. And compliance experts know how to condition the environment to get the response that they are looking for, right? So people typically will do luncheons, do fundraising over luncheons, because when people are eating, they're more easy. It's more easy for them to say yes. It could be light music, jazz music. You just condition the environment. Easier to get yes from a conditioned environment. The association principles suggest that pairing a product with a positive, well-known, or desirable values such as beauty, love, or status will make that product more desirable to customers, right? The association principle simply states that when two things are linked in some way, we assume they are linked in other ways, right? If you can link the thing you're trying to say yes, you get a yes for, to something that's pleasurable to the person, it's easier for the person to say yes to it, right? So those are different ways by which we get yes from people. And again, to say it is physical attractiveness, similarity, compliments, familiarity, and conditioning and association. We can condition an environment to a pleasurable environment that it makes it easy for the person to say yes. Right. So that's all about liking principle. We'll go on to the scarcity principle. Scarcity principle is easy. Once something is scarce, we think that we must get our own before the opportunity to get it is gone. Right. So J.K. Chesterton said, the way to love anything is to realize that it might be lost. Once we once we think something will be lost, we tend to love it. Once we think time is up, we tend to love the little time we have. When they say, "Oh, you're gonna die in 1 year's time," you tend to love your life. But if you think you're gonna live for the less 20 years, you tend to waste away the time because you think you have all the time in the world. And that's what the scarcity principle rests on. Scarce things are more attractive than abundant ones. The scarcity principle suggests that people are more motivated by the thoughts of losing something. Just a mere thought of losing something, increases the value of that thing than gaining something of equal value. That the value increases because you think you might lose your access to it. So and you can use that. People use that to persuade us, in one direction or the other, right? So the scarcity principle states that people assign a higher value to opportunities, services, or products when they are perceived to be limited in availability or they are rare. It is driven by the fear of missing out and a perceived loss of freedom, right? That value goes up because we think we might lose, our access to it. So by highlighting the limited availability or exclusivity of your product, solution, or idea, you create a sense of urgency, right? So people are intensely motivated to make choices designed to avoid losing something of value to a much greater extent than choices designed to obtain that thing, right? So if you it's easier to make choices, to get something, that you think you might lose than something that you think is always there, right? It's called loss aversion. You are motivated to get something that you think you might no more have the opportunity to get. So there's several principles. So we have two major sources of the power of the scarcity principle. One is familiar, right? Like the other influence principles, it trades on our weakness for shortcut, right? So we use the scarcity principle because it's an easy way to make a decision. Something is scarce, it must be of value, right? It's an easy way to make a decision when we don't have enough time and we don't know much about the product, right? But if it's something that's really important, right? Like in Amazon, they had two kinds of decisions that can be made by the line supervisors and decisions that they need to escalate for decision for to be made, right? If it's a decision that can easily be reversed, the line managers, the line attendants can make those decisions. But if it's something that is irreversible, then they need to cascade it, right? So in making simple decisions, it's easy to just, oh, it's cost is important, but if it's something that's irreversible, you might need to step back, take two steps back and think more about the true value of that thing, because its cost really doesn't mean all the time that it's important, but it's just a natural rule of thumb, short circuit way of making a decision, which is not necessarily always true, right? So that's why we need to check, to be sure that, someone is not deceiving us of a scarcity, or we're not misplacing or misrepresenting the value just because it's scarce, right? So the power of the scarcity comes from that, is there's the general rule of thumb is that things are difficult to get. That things that are difficult to get are typically better than things that are easy to get, right? That's a power of the scarcity principle. It's not always true, but it's generally true, right? The second part of it is the loss of personal control, right? You're losing something that you probably won't get access to again, and part of it is for me, I'm going to retire next year. So in a sense, uh, these little months I have here left are months that um, I would not have again as a staff. So that increases the value of every month, every week, every day for me, right? And I'm having to not let them not let them just go to waste, right? I made up my mind to optimize, exploit each of these days, each of these weeks, and each of these months, right? And I've done a good job of January, February, March, April, and May here. I'm proud of myself, right? So the power of scarcity comes from a loss of personal control. When free choice is limited or threatened, the need to retain our freedoms makes us want them, right? As well as the goods and services associated with them significantly more than before. I mean, I also remember the time when uh internet first came, and out here, not every staff could have access to the internet. You had, was for a selected few, and password and all of that. And it used to be priced because it was limited, right? Now that there are no more limits, almost like you're thinking, why did I think that was important? No, it was only important because it was scarce, not necessarily because of the value itself, right? And those are different ways by which the power of scarcity comes to us, either just by the familiar rule of thumb that because something is scarce, then it's important, or because you just feel that we don't have control over it. When you get that control, the value really goes off. But it's just a human tendency. So scarcity works when someone is already convinced of the value, but is still hesitating, right? It combines loss aversion with urgency. Never use the scarcity principle as your first move. If you're trying to convince someone, it works hardest when that pain is already felt, right? So use it when someone is already looking in the right direction, but postponing the decision. If you're trying to get someone to do something and the person is dilly-dallying, just because the thing is cast might easily sway the person, to make that decision, or the person's thing is going to become scarce, right? Alrighty. And the last of them, of the seven principles, is unity, right? This didn't used to be a part of the list, until recently. Was first time Robert Cialdini released the psychological principles for persuasion. There were only six. Recently he's added this seven, and it's really powerful and potent, right? Is the we, is the shared me. Just because you see the we in something, it tends to want to sway you in that direction. It's the power of belonging to a family or something that is familiar, something that you associate with. People are inclined to say yes to someone they consider one of them. It's about identities, shared identities. It's about being a part of a family, culture, identity. Whoever is one of us is automatically more trusted and followed, right? You tend to trust people that you see as family. It's easier to say yes to someone that's inside than to someone that's outside, or more like, you want to be you want it to be a part of what you already belong to. So the principle of unity refers to the concept of oneness, coherence, and harmony. People are heavily influenced by those who share a similar identity, background, or sense of community. It's the we aspect, right? Easier to say some. So, so research showed that members of a we-based group favor the outcome and welfare of fellow members over those of non-members by mile. You're more concerned about the welfare of those that belong to the we group. Sometimes you have some groups and you don't see this, it's because that commonality is missing. It's the people that don't see, they don't see that oneness, or there is a competition between another group they belong to, two different groups that they belong to. But typically, if you see yourself as a part of something, you want to do everything for that thing. Sometimes also things that limited against this could also be, defects in the personality. So we're talking about, defects in someone's personality. For me, I come from a place of where I saw the tendency to be easier to say yes to those outside my family than those within my family. I could easily excuse away to them, and because they would easily understand my saying no. So it was easier to say no inside and say easier to say yes outside. But that was off. That was because there was a defect in my personality. I was more concerned about what people would say about me, than me doing the right thing, how to correct that, how to intentionally correct that, how to I grade my family above outside. I had to kill that weak tendency to be too concerned about what people will say about me, than being me, right? It's eh, being concerned what people will say about you is not love. It's just it's a weakness. It's it's immature. Right. Life is about, you know, owning your life, not giving that to someone else. Because if you are too concerned about what people say about you, you don't own your life. You are a servant to the people that you're concerned about what they have to say concerning you. What you have to say concerning you is more important than any other person has to say concerning you, because you are the master of your life. You are the captain of your boat. You are your master of your destiny. And whatever tomorrow, whatever happens to you, those people that you are worried about what they will say will not be the one to feel the pain or get the pleasure of what your destiny or final outcome of your life is. You will be the one, and the people closest to you. Right. So I had to work against that, deficiency in my life, because the right thing is that, and for someone that is mature and is normal, right, the outcome and welfare of the fellow members, are more important than those that are not the members of that household, right? So we groups are highly likely to use the preferences and actions of fellow members to guide their own, right? If you're in a we group, you tend to be influenced by fellow members of your group, right? Which binds you even more, right? So, and the third observation from research is that the partisan tendencies have arisen, evolutionary as ways to advantage the we group and ultimately the individuals in the groups. When you spend time together, you tend to bond and you tend to want to become stronger. It's just a natural process, as you bond together, so if you as you bond together, you will tend to want to be stronger together. So and that we group just and that the we tendency or unity tendency just builds on that. So focus on shared values, collaborative language, and inclusive group membership to build deep trusting relationships. So if you're going to get yes, focus on what makes you together, what the we-ness is with you and the people. You need to bring that to fore. When you bring that to fore and people you're talking to see you as a member of their we group, family group, it's easier for them to say yes to you because they see you in them, and their yes to you is a yes to themselves, right? And that's what the power of the unity principle being the seven. So those are the seven psychological principles put together, by Robert B. Cialdini, and they just help us, in persuading people. It helps us to understand why we also are persuaded, a shortcut. So we do understand why we're feeling one way or the other, trying to make one decision or the other, and it guides us to check if whether it's someone is playing trying to exploit us through that tendency, or we're in a safe place. But it just tells us why we feel one way or the other, and we can then, tend to every now and then be sure that it's leading us to the right place. Right. So that's the end of it. Talking about persuasion. We're going to next week start talking about decision architecture, because all of what we're put together here to get someone to make a decision now depends on the way you put it together. The structure of your presentation, is going to help in the final decision that's made by your audience. And that's what we'll be talking about in decision architecture, how to make your presentation in such a way as to get the decision you're trying to get. Right? That's what we're gonna do starting from next week. All righty. I hope you got blessed. I hope you learned one thing or the other. And there's something for you to take away. Feel free to drop a comment on my blog site. Feel free to 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 come along. All right, I'm going to stop here for today. That's all I have. We'll come back next week and continue talking about decision architecture. All right, thank you. God bless you. Bye bye. Enjoy